as Mr. Andy Burrows from the Bahamas Investment Authority, Office of the Prime Minister. Let's welcome them.
Thank you very much. For those of you out in virtual land, thank you for being here with us. Today, we want to approach a subject that really talks about the diaspora. Most countries around the world, the diaspora is an important addition to the fabric of the growth of nations. We want it to be the same thing for the Bahamas. Can the diaspora invest in the Bahamas? Can they use Bahamas Investment Authority? Can they work with the Tourism Development Agency? What are some of the rules that are governed by consular activities? And I have a great bunch of colleagues here and friends who can answer most of those questions. So I'm gonna have everybody in, and then we'll go right into it. So I'll start with Andy Burrows on the end.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. Hope everybody's doing well. My name is Andy Burrows. I am an investment consultant in the Bahamas Investment Authority. I work for Felicia Hannah Woods, who is the Director of Investments for the government.
Good morning. I am Ian Ferguson. Thank you, Dr. Ingram, for having me again. I am responsible for the Tourism Development Corporation, which is the recently formed, some 3 years ago now, a government agency responsible for assisting in the very holistic and sustained development of tourism, which of course everyone knows has been our mainstay for 7+ decades. But now specific focus on how we develop the product, how do we develop the businesses in the industry, and of course, ultimately growing the number of entrepreneurs in that space. Thank you.
Angel?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Angel Colby Taylor, and I have this distinct pleasure of serving at the Bahamas Consulate General here in Miami as a vice consul with responsibility for crisis management as well as consular protection for our diaspora here in Miami, as well as our jurisdiction, the states that we are responsible for. Thank you.
Gilbert, Your Excellency.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished members of the panel. I am Gilbert Morris. I am currently the Vice Chancellor of the Bahamas Diaspora Diplomatic Institute, where I train all of our entry-level FSOs, Foreign Service Officers, and advise. And I'm formerly the chairman of the National Investment Agency of Turks and Caicos, and so quite familiar with all the investment protocols required in developing countries.
Well, I'm going to get right into it. Andy, the first question, the Bahamas has an investment authority to help expatriates coming in. Does that include people like myself, a Bahamian that's living in the diaspora? Can I take advantage of the services that you guys offer?
Yeah, so I think we constantly get this question, and I'm surprised that it's still not codified for everyone to understand. The Bahamas Investment Authority supports all investments that are coming to the Bahamas from anywhere. It's just the Bahamas are not disenfranchised. In fact, we give the same quality of service to our international investors as for Bahamians. We prefer to push Bahamian investments as quickly as possible because they're online. I mean, they're there and they're part of the diaspora. But this notion that that there's a bifurcation of some sort between international investors and Bahamians or the diaspora doesn't exist.
So Ian, based on what he just said, do you see in your role an opportunity to expand, reaching out, working with BIA to get more of us in the diaspora doing business? Because tourism development, tell us a little bit about what you're charged with.
Absolutely. So huge part of our mandate, our legislative mandate, is to assist in making it easier to enter the tourism market. Now, of course, we know entering the tourism market has historically been quite easy, because almost anyone can just, purchase a jet ski and you're in business. And that's been a part of the challenge as well. But to do it sensibly, strategically, I believe there is certainly an opportunity. I was very encouraged to hear that the red carpet is the proverbial red carpet is rolled out for Bahamians who obviously have a vested interest in the country, because I believe that is definitely the direction that we need to take. We need to, in fact, be very aggressively looking for Bahamians in the diaspora and locally that have the funding resources for airlift, market access, airlift, sea transportation, ferry services, accommodations, the whole gamut of the 8 sectors of tourism. The natural and the cultural assets that we have, rich, and it's time, I believe, my grandmother would say, high time, that we specifically, pointedly identify Bahamians with resources to fill those gaps.
Professor Morris, you've studied economies around the world, and in your opinion, what are we doing right in terms of talking to the diaspora? What are we doing wrong, or what do we need to do?
We're doing the right thing in now beginning to aggregate the diaspora in through various efforts and groups. One of them is yours. I was given a mandate to aggregate all Bahamians in C-suites, all Bahamians in significant roles around the world. We have more than 400 professors at various states of tenure all over the world. Some of them in highly specialized areas, particularly at the University of Texas, University of California, in physics, chemistry, and mathematics. And these people, you will understand, are engaged by the national security networks where they are. And that's because we haven't engaged them and created the general conflict which based on their allegiance to us. So it's good that we have taken notice of them every now and then. In fact, on like Peter Blair, who's professor of economics at Harvard University. Dr. Peter Blair was also hired by the Biden administration to do all the vetting of the White House Economic Council. And in that role, because he's a labor economist, he ended up designing a program for it's that he ended up designing a program for the relief of student loans and also something called occupational licensing. And for a developing country, occupational licensing is very important because it means that there are people who are doing, like a maid who can clean a room in 7 minutes. There's no certification for her, right? The fellow who's not a landscape architect but knows how to, to treat a residential yard, as you would say, and also able to manage a large-scale hotel's landscaping. There's no certification there. So Peter Blair is doing those types of things. And I made the last point, and I will just add to this later on. What that implies is there have to be vehicles for the diaspora to invest. They left what we are right now. They left that. And they did better where they are. And I know that may feel hurtful, but they did better where they are, given what we are. That means if you want to attract them, you can't invite them back to what they left.
Good. That's
vehicles and pathways that will attract them at the level that they achieved.
That's a good point, Professor Morris. So when I look at the consul generals around the U.S., I always wondered, can we go to them for directions? The services that you provide at the consulate offices, are they? I know there are for Bahamians as well as people visiting, but can you be a conduit for folks in the diaspora to come and say, "Can I get advice on passports and so forth?"
Definitely, definitely, we can. We have a open door policy where Bahamian nationals who are, whether they're looking or whether they have in persons who want to invest, not themselves, or whether they want to themselves, we have persons within the consulate that deals specifically with the trade and investment, and they can meet with persons and explain to them, how do I invest in the Bahamas as a Bahamian with a business outside of the Bahamas? So there are means and ways that we can get them involved or get information to them to be able to invest back home, as well as when we collaborate with other other countries in sharing knowledge in the way that they possibly do things for their nationals, we can, piggyback off of them.
Timing is so critical. Ian, your organization is new, but old in terms of opportunities that are abundant. You mentioned the jet skis. Do you see a wide range of issues that the diaspora can play a role in investing into? And can you identify individuals or companies that may be good matchmaking?
I was really encouraged when I heard Brother Morris, mention the fact that we have been very intentional in identifying Bahamians that are doing well abroad, C-suite in particular. And, we have, I guess, in a very organic way, coming out of a program that we had early in the year. It was called Entrepreneurial Think Tank. In fact, we had Hartley Thompson in as our keynote for that event. And so we started I suppose it's a Bahamian diaspora mentorship program for businesses that we know are struggling or that could use that extra push in terms of growth, scaling their businesses. And I just thought, sitting here, how wonderful it would be if we could get 400 Bahamians that have done extremely well, that have the intellectual resources, the business acumen, and the capital to provide that hand-holding support. I think that goes so much further than my team sitting down and running a program or running a training. I think this is a great opportunity. More specifically to the question that you raised, Dr. Ingram, we've seen this historically in our country. Henry Flagler in 1900 builds Hotel Colonial. And subsequent to that, in fact, just a couple of years prior, he starts a steamline service to bring visitors to the hotel that he built. So he makes the connection as the Czar of Miami to the Bahamas. And I can't imagine why Bahamians can't see that model, that 120-year model, and say, we can do that as well.
That makes sense. Professor Morris, we have a lot of land in the Bahamas. The current population operates on probably 2 or 3% of the land mass. Is it, and I know you can't speak for the government, but is it a great idea for the government to use some of that crown land as an enticement to get folks in, or are we entitled to use crown land as as diaspora members as well as Bahamians?
Well, I'm probably going to get you deported with this answer.
I'll take my chances.
Number one, we have 2.8 million acres of crown land. If you think about it, Texas Acres has 4,800 acres of crown land worth $2.4 billion because the price point of the value of land, 1 acre of land, is beachfront land is $5 million to Texas Acres. Nobody can metabolize 2.8 million acres. I have argued for years that we should take 100,000 acres of the highest and best use, master plan it across 5 islands, and then we should set up a vehicle make sure it's owned by the Bahamian people, because the problem is, when you have investments from the outside, Cayman is finding this, Bermuda is finding this, Turkish Islands is finding this. When you have large investments from the outside into a small community, it disfigures the land values and breaks the equilibrium between land values and wages. And it prices the local people out of the land. The only so the sovereign fund is not a sheep thing for us. It's a solution that allows the local persons to enjoy some of the prosperity without the government having to reach into its pocket. I gave advice in Guyana 9 years ago, and I said, listen, now that you found oil, there's going to be a new city in Guyana. Find a place where that new city will be. Put that land in the sovereign fund, attach every Guyanese through their national insurance to that sovereign fund. And then when the land appreciates in value, that value, part of that value accrues to the people of Guyana without the government having to put its hand in its pocket. On the second half of that is for the diaspora. When I was chairman of the National Investment Agency, Turks and Caicos, there are 15,200 Turks and Caicos Islanders. There are 34,000 Turks and Caicos Islanders living in the Bahamas. It was my recommendation that we have a heightened protocol for Turks and Caicos Islanders returning with investments that we have even for the foreign investor. And the reason is because if a fellow is in Atlanta or New York and he puts together an investment deal, part of his credibility is how he is received in the Bahamas. So if he gets waiting the way we usually do, if his time is wasted, right? If he can't get a meeting, his credibility is shot with the people that he's trying to do business with. So part of our strategy has to be to do something that we don't normally do, which is treat each other well and give each other the reputational protocol that enhances our standing in the places from which we are bringing investors.
I'm going to jump in here, Andy. We have been talking about that in the government, and specifically in the BIA, right? So about how do we get, because the investment opportunity in Bahamas is wide, and also that is the one-stop shop that people go to. Some of the challenges we have is really by investors coming in unprepared to meet the requirements of government, right? Some of it, if not most of it, has something to do who they're partnering with and which firms are putting these deals through. So that's
these are local partners.
The local partners.
Okay,
because
perfect.
you know, if you're coming into the Bahamas, you have to deal with local providers, right? Lawyers, accountants.
When you say you have to deal with local,
You have
are
to-
you mandated to deal? If I'm bringing an investment to the Bahamas as an expatriate, are you telling me that I must have a local partner? I want to be very clear with that.
Yes.
That's unusual, isn't it?
No, but that's part of the system. Listen, I can't. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I agree. I'm just saying that's what it is.
Well, let me just add to that. I mean, that can be an inhibitor, in my opinion, because if I go to Miami to build a hotel, or New York City, or Washington, do you think they would tell me that I need a local partner too? And if they did, I'd take my business elsewhere.
I don't have an.
Go ahead, Gilbert.
Yeah, the point of that is not to marvel at the policy. The point is to ask, what is the protocol to make the policy work? And that is, you need greater investor education in the Bahamas. So if you
There
have
you
to
go.
have a Bahamian, if you have to have a Bahamian partner, if you go to the Dominican Republic, which is the best performing economy in the region for several years now, you need a local partner. But they have a clear process where you know it's 5 steps from the time you apply to the time you are approved. They know the timeline. The local investor has penalties on him if he defrauds or misstates or mistreats the foreign investor. So the issue is the policy can be whatever it is. In the economist, I can tell you, I've seen every type of policy work. But the reason you have the local investor proposition is because in a small country, you want to infuse locals with part of prosperity that comes from investment. You have a place like Cayman, where after Michael Manley won in Jamaica, and I have to say it this way, so sorry, white Jamaicans moved to Cayman. But what they did is they displaced the local Caymanians. And so Cayman registers as the second best economy in the region, but Caymanians are nowhere on the register.
Now,
So now,
Professor Gilbert Morris, I like Andy's position, and thus you talk to Ian. If I'm going to invest in a local market, I want to find a partner that knows the landscape. I want to find a partner that's good for me and my effort, which is why when I look at the TDC or I look at Bahamas Investment Authority, and I say to them, I'm bringing a chicken farm there or a hotel. And I saw something on TV a few weeks ago, Brian Bulmer from Sulamar and Andres. And I was really caught by that because he said, and he took the Rusty Barge restaurant, a bar, and they renovated it. And he said, I renovated this or got involved with a local partner because I want something for my guests to do. He did the same thing with the Blue Hole. So local investors and local partners are great, but I want to make sure that I can find the partners that are good for my business and my business model. So I want to know whether BIA, whether TI Investment Authority, I'm getting these right, TIA, BIA, and any other kind of AIA you have. I copied that from Cylinder, Finland. But, you know, to go with Professor Morris' point, I want the tides of prosperity to float all boats.
Yeah, let me be clear, right? So the benefit that we've seen over the years is that we are able to cause the local providers to stay in step, to not disenfranchise any investors who are coming in.
Perfect.
So part of our concern generally, and people seem to think that we're kind of tight on this, is that we don't want the reputation of the Bahamas to be affected by people being manipulated. Now, I'm gonna be saying that the wrong way, but that's my way of saying things, right? I'm not a politician or anything like that. But the reality is we have billions of dollars of approved investments on the books. The challenge you have is people finding the right partners or finding funding or finding the right lawyer, all those kinds of things, right? And the local providers do their best to support that. But we approve things on the basis of what's presented to us. It fits everything and is approved. Most of the issues generally is around funding the investment.
Yeah, but I like joint ventures, and I'm going to ask Ian this specifically, and Professor Morris said this earlier. We have Crown land. Can I take or can I find a Bahamian partner that may have Crown land? If I'm an expatriate coming in, that Crown land has value. And so that becomes my currency to enter the equation. So Ian, in your case, are you finding a lot of opportunities for joint venturing from your point of view?
Absolutely. I'm certainly not the Crown land expert, but but I know, for instance, the Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas had a significant amount of land.
Where's the chairman? He's still here? We don't see the chairman of the Hotel Corporation. He was here earlier.
Yeah. You know, Eleuthera, Andros, and I know that there was a very deliberate push, in fact, a number of proposals that came to the table for, yes, Bahamians to lead investments in accommodations. We know that that's historically a challenge for us. We have been very stagnant for the last 30 years in room inventory, and very few Bahamians, you know, like Dillard family actually own those beautiful boutique hotels that we know are essential. I mean, the bedrock really to the accommodations industry in tourism. Uh, but it provided us with a great opportunity to have Bahamians lead with that foreign direct investment support. Just the explosion, and I really wish we could move on those kinds of things, because everything is literally lined up for us to move on it. With that, Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas land, specifically Cat Island, Eleuthera, Andros, I say it's ready, set, go.
Good. I like that.
There has been a lot of talk around defining a 5-island strategy for development that the government will focus on, and investors will come. And we know them already. We know where they are.
Mm.
And so you have friends who are looking in some of these areas. That's how do we move that quicker? And it's not the BIA. We're trying to get it in as quickly as possible to get it out. The question is how we get the partnership necessary for these deals to go through in a timely fashion. Not only just get it on the books, but how do we get the funding side of these things working appropriately?
So, go ahead, Professor Morris.
Dr. Ingram, I want my 3 colleagues on the panel. Here's my hope for them. I want them to be more powerful. I want them to have more official power. I don't like the idea. No, if you go to Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and these people, and you say, Hotel Corporation has land. You mean raw land, like when you have the letter and a Bible and so on sale, you will see that sort of land. The government is holding the land the same way. That's not what should happen is, there should be an overall survey of the Bahamas. I've been writing about the 5-island development proposition for 25 years now. There should be designate the land. The government should invest the money to master plan the land. It could be a flexible master plan, but master plan. And these 3 people should be able to go all around the world and have a dossier or a smart TV with the 3D images of the land and be able to say, you can invest right here, here's the criteria. There's no situation where we're ready for investment when we're telling people to come go stand in the yard in Cat Island, and in the yard in Long Island, and the yard in Eleuthera, with raw land, the way God made it, and say that that's ready for investment. We have to master plan. We need the value of this land to investors is a master plan. And if we can do that, number 2, how do you, if you understand the sovereign fund, the sovereign REIT, the real estate investment fund concept, there should be no reason that there's difficulty providing the Bahamians bring investment with some seed investment. Because once you earmark the land, you put it in a sovereign REIT, and then you sell 10%. Any investment fund anywhere in the world will put that on their balance sheet. Oceanfront, ocean view, high elevation land in the Bahamas. Oh yes, they would put that on their balance sheet. Once they buy into that as a fund, they buy into it as a fund, as a land fund. Once they buy into that, it revalues all the rest of the land. So my advice to Turks and Caicos Islands was, you have 4,800 acres of crown land. Put it in a fund, a real estate investment fund, and sell 20% of the equity. When you sell 20% of the equity, that raises capital for you, and it revalues the rest of the land. So you just made Turks and Caicos Islands rich because they own the land, and you just provided seed capital to get people over the soft costs for getting into investment.
It just dawned on me, Professor Morris, it just dawned on me about joint venturing. Excuse me, I'm going to have you put that chair, I'm going to ask the chamber person, Shahiba, to join us on stage because, excuse me, can you put that chair on stage for me, please? I just saw a gentleman go through there. Shahiva. Thank you, Stephen. Join us on stage. I want to just talk a little bit about what Shahiva just did in the Bahamas. And Professor Morris just gave me the greatest idea that I've had for the day. Not in my life, Anita. Yeah. The light bulb just went off. That's the one you turn on with a switch. And the switch is Dr. Morris.
Is that the one you turned on
Dr.
last week?
Dr. Morris just reminded me of less than 3 weeks ago. Less than 3 weeks ago, this young lady took a group of people to the Bahamas to talk about investing jointly, to talk about how do I find local people in the Bahamas. She held a meeting at a Bahamian-owned restaurant. She spoke with Professor Morris. She spoke with Andy. She spoke with Ian and a number of agencies. So, Ian, when I think and I hear Dr. Morris clearly, I'm interested in how do we start not now. If I was gonna, you know what, by the power invested in me as a Bahamian, I'm gonna empower all your public servants to be powerful. That's not worth a hill of beans. What I am gonna do though, is say to Shahiva, introduce yourself and tell us what you tried to do in the Bahamas a few weeks ago. It's called empowering local Bahamians. You're not even an elected official in my country.
Thank you, Andy, for this opportunity. But my name is Shahiwa Jarrett Gellin. I run the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Florida Association of Black Chambers. And actually, it was in December of 2023 because we had, I believe it was a Canadian consulate reach out to us as they bring businesses down from Canada to, meet local businesses in Broward. And I said to myself, well, we need to be able to meet our folks right here next door in the Caribbean to see how we as American-owned businesses can work with them, how we can also learn about investment opportunities in their countries to see how we can do joint ventures as well. And so I met at that time with your consulate general to see if they did a reverse trade mission to kind of get that kicked off. That didn't happen. And I told myself, I'm not going to let another year pass without us going. So I gathered 4 Florida Black chambers, the Orlando Black Chamber, Palm Beach, my chamber in Broward, and the Miami-Dade Chamber. And we went down to the Bahamas on a trade mission. And the purpose of the trade mission was really twofold. One, I wanted our folks that came to understand how to do business properly in the Bahamas, because I think that's important to respect the culture and to respect the people. But it's also about us getting reconnected as Black folks and understanding that economically there's power when we work together. And so, as you mentioned, we had a reception at Wild Time.
Wow, my favorite restaurant, by the way.
Yeah, owned by a local young Black man, 40 years old. So, wherever we go, we like to support
Chef
Black businesses.
Shout out to Chef
Chef
at Wild
McPhee.
Time.
It was beautiful. And so we were able to meet with Professor Morris, who broke down, and they loved him, by the way, as you can see with the voice and everything, but he broke down the opportunities. He broke down the opportunities, the kind of the outlook for the country, in certain industries that would be available for investment and for partnership. And we provided our participants with a list of opportunities that they could either go in on their own and the opportunities that required a Bahamian partner. And everybody found it very useful. And then on Friday, Ian was very instrumental in getting us a meeting place so that we could have a round table with local Black business owners. So that was our second portion. And we had a full
local Black business owners in the Bahamas.
Okay, there you go. My bad. Right. I'm used to saying that here in America, but with local Bahamians who owned, a wide variety of businesses. And we talked about needs and the different gaps that we could fill as entrepreneurs, and we walked away I was able to refer at least 5 people to folks in my chamber here for folks who had trouble at the port, needed a patent attorney, etc. And so we're doing that exchange to start that conversation as to how we can help We build relationships, work with each other, but the ultimate goal is for us to be able to do something in the Bahamas, invest there, because as we heard from my good friend here who also came to the roundtable, Andy, there's opportunity for investment there, but we want to do it right and smart and not have a deal sitting on the table as he talked about for years and years because we don't have the funding. But that was the point. We have to connect not only with our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, but on the African continent. So that's our point. Economically together, we're stronger, and we have to push that narrative.
Your next trade mission, I want you to use Bahamas as your official trade mission carrier.
Now, the turnout from that, from the chambers coming together was quite excellent, actually, and we had some providers, service providers there too, right? We had lawyers, a couple of lawyers and stuff, and so it was clear for them. It's easy for them to understand, easier for them to understand what is necessary. So I think the takeaway from that was how do we do that more often? And how do we make sure that we are having African Americans involved in the Bahamas with equally causing Bahamians to have an in into the U.S. And those partnerships are coming through. I think so. It was very well done, and I think we can do it again, aren't we?
No, absolutely. Just to add this, because we don't want to do these one-off trips. So our trip was, the first kind of olive branch to, create those relationships. And we know relationships take time. But I'm working with the consulate because I've mentioned to the current consul general in Miami, we want to do a reverse trade mission. And I mentioned it there several times. We want to get you up here also because we don't just want this to be a one-off. So when you all come, we have Fitzy and Broward. I'm like, you guys will meet with us, but 79 other countries that come to that conference because we want to be able to open doors for you as well around the world. And then we'll follow with other meetings. But the point is, it's not just a one-off. We want to create long-term relationships and partnerships.
You also met with the U.S. Embassy. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, we did. Well, that was wonderful because I think a lot of our businesses don't understand the role of the U.S. Embassy and the different ways that they help our American businesses abroad. And so we were able to meet with two folks there that broke down all of the services that they provide to American businesses looking to do, businesses, whether it's joint ventures with locals or otherwise. And so folks really walked away with this feeling really, the word you used, Andy, empowered to say, I can do this. This is not such a difficult step. Obviously, there are steps to follow, but like the professor said, if there's a process that I can follow, then we're able to kind of, check off our boxes 1, 2, and 3 and get to the goal and the result that we want. So it was very, successful.
It's interesting, and having worked with the U.S. Embassy for many years, and this past year we hosted a reception for Ambassador Herschel Walker and Mrs. Johnson. I know you were there with us in Nassau. But what I think is important is people coming together. We're just about running out of time, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to give everybody a moment, not 2 minutes, not 5 minutes, but a moment to reflect and say, to the audience and to the folks in the internet that's viewing us live, what should they be doing to begin not only to empower people, but to look at the Bahamas from the diaspora standpoint and say, I may not want to move back, but I can certainly help nation building. Angel, you want to start us off from this end?
No problem. Information.
Vice Consul, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Information is important. So as long as persons have access to the information of how to do things, especially doing business in the Bahamas, it's very important. So our role at the consulate is to provide that information to the diaspora. So I would say that getting the information out there to persons is important. And once we can do that, I think it kind of makes the process of them doing business a little easier because they know where to go, what to do, and who to contact.
Perfect. Ian?
Yeah, two quick things for me. And it's, again, in fact, two things that Brother Morris mentioned: a partnership through mentorship, ensuring that we make the connections so that we are able to build capacity through information, through knowledge transfer. And secondly, I think we do have a gap in being able to more strategically make what is available open and clear to those persons who are interested in making the investments. I believe we have a ways to go in being able to in rolling on the red carpet, in walking through those 5 steps, in being able to present the very tangible, the very opportunistic opportunities that we have in nation. So I think those 2 things are critical for us at this juncture.
I think on behalf of the BIA, that we are open.
Again, BI is, tell me what that stands for.
Bahamas Investment Authority. All projects across all sectors comes through us, and we work very carefully, very fully with the agents across all the sectors to make sure that they're doing the right things to cause the income investor to be successful. Sometimes we get involved in the conversations, sometimes we don't. But I would just say to everybody, the BIA is a one-stop shop you can go to and get all the information you want. We do not pick your service providers, but we can have a view on who the service provider is, and we can have a conversation and say, where is this project? Because we want these projects to get started and going for the betterment of the Bahamas. So if you have an issue or you have a problem or you want to have a conversation with Felicia and the team, I suggest you reach out to them. If it's with us, we could deal with it. If it's not with us, then you probably have to find a way to get it through to somebody to talk to us about it. But we are keen to try to get as much projects going as quickly as possible.
Good. We're just about out of time, but Shahiba, any closing points, remarks?
I just say this because with our chamber, we work a lot with government agencies, and I push them to be open and do the outreach. So it's not necessarily people coming to you, but how can we make sure that we're out in the community? And yes, we're disseminating information, but more importantly, doing that one-on-one training so folks understand the process, because it's one thing to put out a checklist or a sheet, and yes, they'll know the process, maybe it's online, but to do that one-on-one training or group training, we do a lot of seminars on government contracting, et cetera, for our folks. And that's why we brought the SBDC that you all have in the Bahamas to meet with some of their businesses as well. Cassandra Roll came, but that training where you invite people in and walk them through a process is invaluable, and that will prepare your folks to now be able to deal with folks who are coming in and want to do those joint ventures. They'll be ready.
Perfect. Gilbert, you get 30 seconds.
When I advise governments, I ask them, what do you want? They say invest. I say, so do children playing marbles. They want more marbles. Countries don't talk about what they want. They set timelines and goals.
Yes.
You say, I want 5 billion in new investments in 5 years. So now you have a target. And once you have a target, then you say, okay, how do we get capital? You leverage the asset that you have and generate the marginal income that is the seed investment that you use. So I want the people on that panel to have master plan land with $100 billion under their belt that they can seed investments and that they can go around the world and get the investors, not wait for the investors to come.
Good point, Dr. Morris. I think, the panelists have had great ideas. I'm encouraged by BIA. I'm encouraged by the Tourism Investment Authority, and obviously the services the Consul General provides here in Miami. The Executive Director for Bahamas Investment Authority, Felicia Woods, Hannah, is committed to ensuring equality to Bahamians and expatriates and getting things expedited. And I'm grateful to my colleague, Shahiba, who had the vision to take people into the Bahamas and say, let's find a way to do business. I can tell you in the diaspora, we're committed to helping nation building. That's why we created the Bahamian Diaspora. Tonight, you'll hear from the Prime Minister of the Bahamas. Part of his message will be at the Bahamas Diaspora dinner is come home, come and do business. We're here to help. We want to work with you. And I think for us, that is so critical to hear that warm, inviting invitation to say, let's do business. If you want more information on the diaspora, please go to www.bahamasdiaspora.com. Thank you. Please help me in thanking the panelists today for what a brilliant job they've done. Thank you. Good job, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the opening session of the Bahamas
And the
Diaspora
closing
Summit,
session. Take a picture. It's down there.
discussing Bahamians investing in from the diaspora into the Bahamas. The distinguished panel included Dr. Andy Ingram, founder of the Bahamas Diaspora Association. He was joined by Vice Consul Ms. Angel Colby Taylor. She's in charge of consular protection and crisis response for the Bahamas Consulate Office in Miami, as well as Mr. Ian Ferguson, the CEO and Executive Director of the Tourism Development Corporation, Bahamas Ministry of Tourism, Investments and Aviation. Mr. Andy Burrows, the consultant for the Bahamas Investment Authority, Office of the Prime Minister. And thank you to Shahiva Jarrett Gellin for joining them on stage from the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Florida Association of Black Chambers. Thank you so much.